Hello, I'm Chris Bailey. I'm with Electric Cab North America. Our company has really focused on solving the first and last mile problem. When we first got into this industry about a decade ago, we started as a transportation company, and we've built out a whole lot of experience operating fleets of electric vehicles. Since that point, we've really kind of turned into a data company, an IoT company that just happens to have a whole lot of experience running fleets of electric vehicles. What we've done is we really noticed in our country there are so many empty buses driving around, especially through neighborhoods. It's extremely expensive. Nobody really likes it, and it contributes to pollution. There's a lot of problems with that. So what we've done is we've formulated a business model where we can really connect people to public transportation. We believe very strongly that the future of our society, single occupancy vehicle ownership, is just going to go away. I go to a lot of different conferences. I was in Detroit just a few weeks ago. The big auto manufacturers are even admitting that's at this point. They understand that they're going to need to pivot if they want to stay relevant. Building our society on the idea of more people buying more cars is just not really feasible. So with what we do, we've actually deployed our services in multiple cities. Right now, one of our focuses is in St. Louis. We've been deployed there. Initially, what we did is we found a very underutilized bus route that circled their downtown area. And then what we did is we actually created mobility all in the middle of where that bus route actually was. So the bus route kind of circled downtown, and we came in and we provide point-to-point service all through that area. And then we collect all the data about where people are coming from and where they're going. And what we found is once our services are deployed, number one, it becomes incredibly popular very quickly. And number two, it actually promotes economic development. The businesses in the area where we operate tend to really appreciate this service, and they become some of our strongest advocates almost immediately. Now, what we actually provide is mobility as a service. We're not a company that comes in and says, hey, invest a bunch of money buying assets and things like that. We want to come in and focus on areas that don't have strong connectivity to public transportation. We'll find maybe a rail station or a bus line and use that as an anchor point, and then start building a mobility district around it that provides true connectivity where you can use an app, you can call a phone number, you can text a number, or when you see our vehicles, you just wave them down. They'll stop and pick you up. What we aim to do is actually give people free rides through a district, and then you can save so much money from the inefficiencies in the public transit system that it actually more than pays for itself many times over. Now, we're able to do this through our partnerships. Our partnerships are actually where we gather our strength from. The first partnership that we built out was with Polaris. They're the manufacturer of the electric vehicles that we use. This partnership is really important to us, and what it did was we actually gained access to their factory floor. So as they're assembling vehicles, what we do is we can actually add smart city technology onto the vehicles as they're being built. This is really important for cities and transit agencies. As you start building out your V2X or V2V infrastructure, you need some type of equipment delivered into your infrastructure or into your city in some way where the public's going to accept it. So what we do is we actually think that our electric vehicles are the perfect platform to drive new smart city technology into an urban core with. And you get a very positive public response from that. We actually did a V2V and V2X demonstration Monday night in St. Louis. The St. Louis Dispatch did a really excellent write-up on it. And what we did was we actually connected our vehicles to each other through the smart lighting network. And then we transmitted data, which we encrypted, and actually transmitted speed and directional information from one vehicle to another vehicle. It's really fascinating stuff to see in the future come around. But I'm getting sidetracked a little bit. But if anybody would like to learn more about that project, that one is just really, really exciting because that's the future and it's happening right now. Still on our partnerships. So mobility as a service is the concept of, hey, you don't need to come in and buy a bunch of buses or things like that. So our second partnership is actually with United Rentals, who's America's largest construction equipment rental company. So we took a transportation company and partnered it with a construction equipment rental company. Now, this is important because they have 1,100 branch locations throughout the U.S. and Canada. And as it turns out, repairing an electric vehicle, which is an absolute necessity when you're operating it for commercial purposes, is very difficult through what our society has traditionally done, which is build out, whether it be Ford or GM or any of the traditional automakers, they need dealerships everywhere that can provide service for you. Well, an electric vehicle is a lot more similar to a forklift than a car. And so when an electric vehicle breaks down, you can't just go to a car dealer and get it fixed. There's a lot of complexities in that. So with United Rentals coming in and partnering with us, they actually purchase all the vehicles for us, and that allows us to absorb all of the risk. When we go to a city or a transit agency, they don't need to buy vehicles. It's subscribed to an hourly rate, and then we'll focus on mobility in the district. And we actually really focus heavily on pilot programs. We gather all of the data that we can so that the people that are decision makers are making the absolute best possible decision where they understand their demands and where their traffic patterns are developing. We gather all of that and give it free back to the city or the transit agencies where we're operating, so that we're eliminating waste in our system, so you're not paying for empty vehicles to be driving around, which is really the goal. And I think the more that the public sector is willing to partner with private companies, the more efficiencies that can be gained out of our system. So these are what the vehicles look like. This is in Austin right here. We advertise on the exterior of the vehicle to generate another revenue stream and help offset some of the costs of the program. Again, the goal is to maximize the efficiencies in our transit system and really help nudge public transit along, with the goal of making it more appealing to the next generation and getting people to just stop buying cars. You don't need to do that anymore. I mean, what people really, if you look at the decision-making process when people buy a car, they're not looking to invest in a car. It just starts losing value the second you buy it. You're looking for mobility. You want to be able to move from one point to another. So when you make that really easy by making public transit easy to get to, you solve that problem, and it'll help reduce pollution in our society. It'll help us stop investing so massively in highway infrastructure projects and constant street repairs. We can just be a lot more efficient with the entire system. So we're operating currently in downtown Austin. We received a grant from the Department of Energy last year. We started connecting 3 different rail lines. What we found is just incredibly interesting. Ridership skyrocketed. So on the north part of Austin, there's a development called the Domain, and we connected that to, there's a rail station about a mile away. Ridership shot up immediately on that, and there's some businesses that were hiring shuttles to sit in traffic on the highway to shuttle people to downtown and back. And then once we provided a mobility solution, ridership actually did increase on the rail line right there. We partnered with Cap Metro, the local transit agency, on that, and we reported all the data back to them. We told them where people are coming from and where people are going. The project's still ongoing. It's an overwhelming success, and I'd invite anybody to come to Austin and see it. The Domain is actually a developer that we're doing business with, so they have circulators within their districts that we're operating. Initially, they started a year and a half ago with us. They just wanted to run little connectors with electric vehicles for 5 weeks between Black Friday and Christmas. They never turned it off because the businesses reported back that more people were spending money in their district because they had a mobility option. It's still going today, and they're part of our action cluster, and they're a wonderful partner to have, and we'll continue to promote that region and keep building it up through providing a quality transit service for them. Again, the rides are free. This isn't something that passengers should pay for because it promotes economic development. A lot of the businesses will get together and actually fund this through business districts as well. There's multiple different ways of funding something like this. It's not necessarily relying on grants. This is the grant that we got from the Department of Energy, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Our ridership, this project started around the beginning of the year. I think we're up over 20,000 people that we've moved with essentially between 4 and 6 vehicles. This service has been very popular. A lot of people have been using it. Another project that we have is downtown Kirkwood. Kirkwood was experiencing a lot of parking congestion in their downtown area where the employees would show up, and take the best parking spots. And then the people that lived in the area would kind of report back that it was very difficult to find parking when they wanted to come shop there. This is very scary to hear as a business owner in an area. So they brought us on to really focus on that problem. And what we found is we moved over 10% of the population of the city in about 10 weeks. It was, again, a very successful project. They turned it on, or they turned it off at the end of December. It was just a pilot program, but they came back and they've now turned it back on. So they're now a continuing a partner of ours, and we look forward to continuing to solve their parking problems. The other one is in downtown St. Louis. Did I skip over that one? Well, so I already kind of talked about downtown St. Louis, but anyway, yeah, so it's a very exciting project. Like I said, we really look at ourselves as an IoT company and a data company that just happens to have a whole lot of experience running fleets of electric vehicles. We see this as the future, and we're going to do everything we can to get people to stop buying cars. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir. So, actually, I want to answer your question. I own a truck, and it's a big truck, and I use it to tow these around to conventions. But I actually relocated to downtown St. Louis when this project started. I wanted to make sure it was managed properly, and I parked my truck in the parking garage, and I didn't get in it for 3 months after that. And more importantly, what we actually found was that was an activity being shared by a lot of the residents of downtown St. Louis. There's a grocery store downtown, and for the last 20 years, people have been getting in their cars if they live downtown, driving 8, 9, 10 blocks to go to the grocery store, parking in a 15-story parking garage, shopping, taking their groceries back up in this parking garage, driving their car back to the parking garage around their house, taking the groceries from you get the point. Once we started this project, we put pickup beds on the backs of these vehicles, and everybody started using us to do their grocery shopping. And that parking garage is starting to see a lot less business. And when you really look at the economic development side of this, if you think, I know my time's probably up, but if you look at a real estate developer and you think about them building 15-story buildings, well, they'd have a really hard time leasing any of the office space above the second floor if the elevator wasn't free. So, when you think about that concept and you take it and you turn it on its side and apply it to sidewalks and downtown environments, and you just make it really easy to get from one place to another, people move around a whole lot more and they spend a lot more money. Same as the real estate model. Same thing at airports when you have people movers. We don't notice it, but some of those distances, even here in Portland, they have the people movers between the terminals. Everybody walks on those, and the thing starts making the airport more efficient. If everybody was just having to walk with all their luggage, it slows the whole system down. So we're strong believers in a vibrant economy and a vibrant mobility service. And like I said, we've built a system where we actually come in and do pilots and absorb as much risk as we possibly can, and make it as easy as possible to do business. And we want the decision making to be as educated as possible. Yes, sir. So we actually found the ADA community has a very strong ridership with us. The vehicles are very roomy on the interior. So with our project in Kirkwood, it's a town of 30,000 people, and they really only wanted us to focus on the downtown district, but there were 3 senior living facilities within a mile of there, and they were actually some of our first customers. We thought it would be the millennials that were embracing the service first, but as it turns out, if you want to go visit your older loved one, and maybe they're in a wheelchair, it's kind of a big deal to wheel them down to your car, put them in the car, fold the wheelchair out, put it in the trunk, drive to a business, unload the wheelchair, put them in the wheelchair, take them in, go park your car, come back. What happens is it's just a lot easier to go visit them at the senior living facility, and then those kind of turn into places where people get trapped. When you have an option like this, all of a sudden, you fold the wheelchair up, you put it in there. If it's a walker, you can put it in the pickup bed. We actually can do paratransit as well. We can slide a ramp under the bottom of that folds out, and then remove the middle row of seats and put tie-down clamps into the floor. So paratransit's actually an area of opportunity where we'd like to focus. Same with the blind. Obviously, they struggle or they can't drive, but mobility for them is forgotten a lot. And we see that as a huge area of opportunity. Yes, ma'am. Having kids is hard. Um, I've got a daughter. We're not going to be able to fix that problem. Um, we have 3-point shoulder harnesses and seats if people want to bring their own car seat. It's not something that happens very frequently, but we're aiming to be something that's complementary for public transportation. Certainly we wouldn't turn anybody away with that. I mean, that we welcome the opportunity to move somebody around. We define districts where we operate, and the goal is really to get people onto public transit. When you start moving children, especially very young ones, to daycare before you're commuting to work and things like that, it does get very complex. And we're not claiming to have the answer to everything, but we think this is a good start. Yes, sir.
Do your charging stations include solar options?
We have done that in the past. We don't actually use level 2 charging. We just charge off regular 120 volt plugs. There's an option for that. However, through a partnership with United Rentals, technically, if we have range issues, we just buy more vehicles through them, or we have them purchase more vehicles. It's kind of a win for both of them. Having a backlog of vehicles actually helps you scale to meet demand in your peak times. So having 2 or 3 vehicles in reserve, and then all of a sudden there's an event or some kind of festival or something like that where you're going to see a large increase in use, is actually good for the system that we're building. Did that make sense as far as the answer? You asked about solar as well. I mean, yeah, the issue is the roofs of the vehicles. We have gone in and put solar panels on the roofs before. The trickle charge isn't enough to actually power an electric vehicle from that. We're absolutely willing and interested in making the investments to start building out solar arrays at our parking facilities and use them as carports. But we need more customers. We need to expand the program in order to be able to afford that. But absolutely, we want to move in that direction 100%. So as I kind of led with, where I live in the southwest part of Austin, there's an empty 45-foot bus that drove past my house every day for the last 10 years. Nobody's ever in it. Every city that I've gone to, I watch for that, and it's just really, really common. And so we want to work with public transit agencies to actually increase their efficiencies on that. Buses just don't belong in neighborhoods, and they tend to cost about 40% more than our service. And so if we can get the empty buses out of neighborhoods, the savings on that, actually the transit agency gets a bunch of money back. That's correct. And then in the long term, in the short term, we actually do business with business districts and with developers, as the domain is a multi-billion-dollar mixed-use development. Where the urban planning side of this company is just fascinating. They built probably 8 or 9 extremely large 1,000-plus vehicle parking garages. And when you provide mobility through a district like that, you could actually be building more retail space rather than parking garages, which are really not doing anything for economic development. But yeah, and our vehicles, we actually rent them from United Rentals. We're a customer of them. So it's not being donated to us. We're becoming a bigger and bigger client for them. And we absolutely value that relationship. United Rentals is an amazing company. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.